It started with rain, thick, heavy, relentless, and the sight of Karen Whitmore standing on her porch, screaming as muddy water swallowed her perfect white fence. The same woman who'd ordered my pump station destroyed now watched her own garage flood like a sinking ship. And all I could think was, I warned you. A few months earlier, none of this existed. No chaos, no shouting, no water clawing its way up driveways, just peace and the low hum of the pump station I'd built 8 years ago, the one that had kept our little cul-de-sac bone dry through every storm since 2015. I'm Randall Coleman, former Army Corps engineer, and for the better part of a decade, that concrete box was my quiet insurance policy. Until Karen showed up. The day it began, she came knocking sharp, impatient, like someone trying to dent the door with authority. When I opened it there, she was peach-colored windbreaker, oversized sunglasses, and a clipboard clutched like a sword. "Mr. Coleman," she said, fake sweet, "we need to talk about that thing on the edge of your lot." Her manicured finger pointed toward the pump station, gray solid, harmless. It violates the HOA's visual harmony clause. I almost laughed. "That thing," I said, "is the reason your tulip beds aren't floating down the street." She didn't blink. "It's unsightly. It needs to be removed." Then she handed me a violation notice like a judge dropping a sentence. I remember the paper trembling slightly in my hand, not from fear but anger, the kind that seeps in slow, heavy like storm water in bad soil. At the HOA meeting, Karen ran the show like a self-crowned queen. Her allies Carl with his Sheriff's Star name badge and Ellen from landscaping sat beside her nodding like wind-up dolls. "This structure was never approved," she announced. I raised my hand holding up my permits from the city. "It's legal, it's permitted, and it saved your homes 3 times. Karen smiled, that corporate smile, the kind you wear when you think you've already won. "This isn't about legality, Mr. Coleman," she said. "It's about aesthetics." The room went quiet. No one defended me. Not the Harpers, not the neighbors, whose basements stayed dry thanks to that pump. Just silence and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Karen closed the meeting with a gavel strike. "You have 14 days to comply." That night I pulled out my old blueprints, my engineering notes, the city letter thanking me for initiative. I'd poured that concrete myself with my son one summer when he was home from college. I'd done everything by the book. And yet somehow a woman with a clipboard and a rule book thought she could erase it all in 2 weeks. The next days were hell in paper form, violation letters, warning tags, even one accusing me of inconsistent mailbox color. A white truck started idling at the end of my street at odd hours. I found muddy boot prints near the pump's gravel bed, a handprint smeared on the side of the concrete. It wasn't vandalism, it was a message. "We're watching you." I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe the HOA really could make my life miserable enough that it wasn't worth it. But then I remembered Mrs. Connors, 80 years old, standing knee-deep in floodwater back in 2015, clutching her garden gnomes while her garage filled with mud. I remembered her tears when the new pump kept her home dry the next storm. No, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't crazy. So I fought back. I built what I called my HOA war binder, 3 inches thick laminated evidence of everything permits photos, emails, timestamps. Then I went to City Hall, sat under flickering lights for an hour, and walked out with a signed memorandum confirming that the pump was fully protected under municipal code. Legal, untouchable. At the next HOA meeting, I carried that binder like a weapon. Karen looked up from her agenda and smirked. "Mr. Coleman, we've discussed." "No," I said, sliding the city memo across the table. "You've ignored. This document says any attempt to remove that pump is trespassing and destruction of property." She didn't even glance at it. "This is about community aesthetics, not legal loopholes." "This is about control," I said, "and you're about to lose it." The room buzzed, whispers, glances, the first tiny cracks in her facade. But she didn't back down. 14 days, she repeated. Final warning. 2 weeks later, while I was out of town visiting my daughter, she struck. My neighbor Greg called, voice shaking. "Randall, they tore it down. The pump's gone." At first, I didn't believe him. Then he sent the video. A yellow excavator, a clipboard, and Karen arms crossed watching as the machine's bucket slammed into concrete. My heart stopped. By the time I drove home that night, all that remained was rubble-torn pipe and a ripped permit half hanging from a bolt. I downloaded my security footage every frame. 7:14 a.m., white truck arrives. 7:32, Karen on the sidewalk. 7:40, first strike. 8:23 gone. They didn't just destroy a structure, they violated every line of law I'd followed. I sent everything to the city, the police, the county, even local news. My lawyer confirmed it. Trespass destruction of property violation of municipal code. You've got them cold. I posted the footage online, private link, subject line. They destroyed it while I was gone. Then I waited. Days passed. The city sent a bland acknowledgement email. The HOA sent silence. Karen, though she strutted through the neighborhood every morning like she'd conquered something. Her sunglasses reflected everything but guilt. Then came a new letter. Violation for exposed gravel. The same gravel from the demolished pump site. I laughed a bitter, broken sound. They wanted to bury me in paperwork, drown me in bureaucracy. But that week, nature decided to help. The forecast called for rain. By late afternoon, the sky had turned gray, the kind that smells like electricity and memory. By 6, it poured. I stood on my porch watching water snake down the street toward the place where the pump used to be. Usually by now I'd hear the soft hum, the sound of safety. Instead, silence. By 8, the road was a mirror of moving water. By 9, it lapped at Karen's driveway. At 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Randall. A trembling voice. Karen, my house is flooding. The storm drain's not taking it. I don't know what to do. I let the silence hang. There's no pump anymore, I said. I know that, she stammered. Please, you must have something, a backup. You didn't want to listen, I said quietly. She went silent. I could hear the slosh of water, her dog barking, the panic of someone who'd finally realized control doesn't stop the rain. Can you help? She whispered. I can call the county, I said, but it's probably too late. Okay, she said. Then almost a whisper, I'm sorry. I didn't answer. I just watched the rain fall and thought about how nature doesn't need permission to prove a point. By morning, the neighborhood looked wrecked, mud everywhere, trash cans floating Karen's fence half submerged. City trucks rolled in with sandbags and neighbors whispered on porches. When Karen saw me, she crossed the street, soaked, hair-matted eyes wild. You did this, she hissed. I wanted the pump to stay, I replied. You wanted this flood. No, I said. You did. That afternoon, she called an emergency HOA meeting in her driveway, ankle-deep in her own disaster. About a dozen residents came, most wearing boots, some with folded arms. She launched into a shaky speech about unprecedented weather events. Someone interrupted. Didn't Randall warn you this would happen? Karen's smile froze. There were differing opinions. Another voice who authorized the demolition. Carl tried to deflect, mumbling about beautification goals. Then Mrs. Connors, steady old Mrs. Connors, spoke up from the back. That pump saved my home twice, she said, her voice cracking. You tore it down. Now my carpet's soaked. Silence. That was it. The dam broke figuratively this time. People started shouting. You never asked us. We should vote her out. This board doesn't care about us. By sunset, there was a petition circulating demanding Karen's removal. The next morning, a reporter showed up, camera in hand. She interviewed me by the ruins of the pump site while Karen in the background screamed at a city inspector over mud on her walkway. 2 days later, the headline hit. HOA leader destroys flood pump, gets drenched in backlash. It went viral. Even the city reposted it with a caption, Know your infrastructure rights. Karen lost everything in a week, her reputation, her presidency, her illusion of control. At the next board meeting, held under a tent because the clubhouse basement was still drying out, someone stood up and called for a vote of no confidence. Carl read the bylaw. With signatures from 1/3 of the community, any member can call a vote. Hands went up, every single one. Karen looked around, desperate for allies. None, not even Ellen. The vote is unanimous, Carl said, and just like that, she was out. She sold her house 3 weeks later, moving away quietly, no farewell emails, no speeches. Just a moving truck and silence. The city fined the HOA for unauthorized demolition, and the new board started rebuilding the pump, this time legally, publicly, with everyone watching. I helped as a consultant, not as a leader. I didn't want titles. I just wanted the water to stay where it belonged. The first time the new pump roared to life, the whole neighborhood stood in the rain and applauded. Not for me, just for the sound of safety returning. And as for Karen, well, the last time I saw her she was driving away with her car piled high and her pride washed out with the flood. Some lessons I guess you have to learn knee-deep in the mess you created. Because power might let you silence people, but it can't silence the truth when the rain starts to fall.